Hello and welcome to another episode
of the Lume Plotters.
Yeah.
Yes,
You have to
back
jump
again.
in.
Yes.
We are back, and with a riveting
Well,
topic.
we're always back. We never actually went anywhere. We recorded last week.
Back in your ear holes.
You make it seem like we haven't recorded in ages. But yes, we're back with another riveting topic. So this was something that Ralph put on our list of topics a long time ago. For the listeners that have been here for quite some time, you would have remembered we did a 2-part episode about watch components. And we talked briefly about dials, but Ralph said dials are so complicated that we can have a whole episode on dials.
Oh, you are.
And so he added, dials to the list. And then we never really looked at it. But then something happened a few days ago, and I saw the release of the new Baltic Prismic with the 3 limited edition stone dials. And I was amazed by it. Like, they did some really, really good colors, really good looking watches. So I wanted to talk about dials because of that, in honor of Baltic.
Yeah, they certainly deserve some of the honor. But I must say, there was, when I was younger, it was one of the coolest things that you could have. I don't know if you remember that watch. It was a Tissot stone watch, where the whole case and the dial was made of a piece of stone.
No, I don't know this one.
You don't know that. That is impossible that you don't know that. Tissot watch stone. Man, that is a long time ago. Sorry, it wasn't called stone watch. It was called the rock watch.
Okay. Is it this ugly thing?
I will just show this
hideous.
to you because
I see it. I don't want to see it.
Hodinky made a big article about it. 80s week. So the entire watch was made of stone. Yeah. So the case, the dial, it was just, I don't know, drilled out. I don't know really how they made it, but it was pretty amazing. The rock watch. And at the time, that was the coolest thing to have, right? Because it was just so out there. And I remember some people having this watch and I was like, wow, this is amazing. It didn't really fit my lifestyle at the time because you're young and sporty and just do a lot of activities. So, and this one was not water resistant because it was made of stone, right? And all of the, it's not really,
I'm not surprised.
really water resistant, obviously, because stone does let things through. And it was brittle. I mean, you let it fall and then that was your rock, right? It could just easily break. So yeah, it wasn't really for me, but I thought it was a pretty cool thing to have. And I think it was just, I don't know, quartz. Anyhow, so that was my idea of when I grew up with rock or stone dials.
Stone dials, yes, exactly. Speaking of stone dials, what are you wearing on your wrist today?
I'm wearing.
Which one of your stone dials are you wearing?
I'm wearing my Daytona.
Okay, which one?
No, the
real
Daytona.
one or the fake one?
The absolute real one.
So I have to say I didn't put on a watch.
Okay.
I messaged you and I said, do you want to do a recording? And you said yes. And then I came and sat down at the computer and I am still wearing my Apple Watch from the night.
Oh.
Haram. But I sleep in it. Obviously it's my alarm clock. So I do like having it. And this morning, as you usually do with these wireless chargers, my phone didn't charge all night. Right. So it's nice waking up and knowing that, what notifications you have are all on the watch. So, because I have I pay for the Etisalat plan on it, so I don't have to have the phone, which is quite nice.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, there you go. And to boot, now, as of, I don't know why we do this, but we do this. As you know, my daughter has already an 8 watch collection, right? It's all
No way.
flax and She has the 2 Hodinkee Flick Flacks. She chose 3 other Flick Flacks herself. Then she chose a G-Shock. And then she chose 2 Casios. So she's got quite the collection. And then finally, we got her for her birthday, which is not until December, but we got her an Apple Watch. So she will have, we got her the Apple Watch SE, which on Amazon at the time was like 700 dirhams, which down from 1,000 is not a bad deal. What she's going to do with it, I have no idea. But my wife said that's a great birthday present. So all of our friends at school have Apple Watches, so might as well. Yeah. So now everyone has an Apple Watch in the family, except the dogs.
No, the dogs they don't mind. That's fine.
They don't need the notifications.
Correct.
Yeah. So, but I have used the Apple Watch to test, take the dog's heart rate. I don't know if you've done this.
I have not done that.
Yeah. You could literally, when they're laying on their back, you could put the Apple Watch up onto them, unlock it, and then the heart rate will work.
Okay. Interesting.
And it's a fun little thing. You bring out a treat and you see the heart rate spike.
Yeah,
just
and then,
them seeing
and then
the treat
completely screws up my entire health records. And
oh yeah. Your new heart rate is going to be through the roof.
It's like there's some anomaly.
Yeah. But it's funny, I do still wear my Apple Watch. So even if no one sees me wear it, it's because I wear it at home.
I wear mine only for sleep.
Yeah, and I do go cycling in it. I've decided it's a good cycling watch.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sports, these kind of things.
I guess the other thing we should say, I did mention that I received the new Grand Seiko, the one that's from Chrono and not from Hodinkee themselves. Hodinkee has written me an email saying they have accepted my my dispute, but nothing has been actually done.
No, they actually said they wanted to reimburse you, right? Which is not needed because you have already taken it off from the payment.
No. The email said they have accepted the dispute, essentially saying that we will just refund the amount that was told to us by the credit card company.
But why would they have to refund? Because if it's a dispute, they already took it off from their payment, no?
Yeah, so I guess they have to, but they still have to debate it. So they can review the dispute and then say, we agree or we disagree, right? They don't want people taking advantage of this type of situation and just saying, I never received XYZ item. So in this case, they still have to review it. So I see like a little, in the dispute, it says track your dispute, and it says under merchant review.
Okay.
And the merchant has 30 days to respond to the dispute. And I guess that's kind of it. So
good. I'm glad that this is then hopefully eventually solved.
Did I tell you about the other watch I bought? I got 2 other watches.
You just said that you have another watch, but
no, the other one, I got 2 coming. Did I tell you about the other Hodinkee, the Mercy again? Remember I bought the Mercy a while ago?
Yeah,
I bought it and I sold it immediately to a friend of mine. But then I was like, for the right price, I'd be interested. So I sent like a really cheeky lowball offer to a guy on eBay, and then they didn't accept it for 2 days. So I assumed it was gone, and there's 48 hours for the thing to be accepted. And literally like an hour before, I get a notification saying your best offer has been accepted. And I'm like, what are they talking? I'd already forgotten entirely about this. So then, so I inadvertently bought a Mercy.
Yeah.
And then in the same vein, I inadvertently bought another Hodinkee limited edition. This one was slightly of a higher caliber.
What?
Yeah, not as high, kind of Oris level, I guess we would say. So higher than the Mercy. But it also came in the same way. It was a cheeky offer, this time sent through Chrono again. And the guy was in Saudi Arabia, and he said, I told him that, listen, I'm this close, so shipping isn't going to be a huge deal, blah, blah, blah. I sent him my offer and he accepted, and I received the watch yesterday, but I have to get the bracelet sized. So I guess we'll talk about what it is. I'll tell you live reaction. I should have sent the picture, but I've been a couple times now to this Longines horse jumping event that I keep getting invited to by Longines. And it was always funny because I never actually owned a Longines. So it was through Rivoli. So my thought was, there's always a Longines that I wanted.
Longines.
And it was the...
Not Longines.
Longines. The Longines. Longines. Yes, but I like saying Longines. It's plural. Maybe I have two of them. No, but so there's the one that I always looked at was the Hodinkee one, the Longines chronometer, which was the sector dial that was essentially they removed the crosshairs. We'll talk about what crosshairs are in a moment. In the what is a dial, but it was originally retailed at 10,000 dirhams. So by the time you got it here, it would be around 12. So my cheeky offer was 6. And this one had never really gone under retail price. And that's what pissed me off was I was not going to pay 12K for this Longines. But 6, on the other hand, I'm comfortable paying 6 for it. So the guy accepted.
Let me later you have a look at it. What is it exactly called? Longines?
It's called the Longines Heritage Classic for Hodinkee.
Heritage Classic for Hodinkee. Okay. The sector dial.
With the beads of rice bracelet.
Nice. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I really like the normal sector dial. The light blue one, I think it was, right?
Yeah. There's 2 issues with that one. One, it had the crosshairs on the dial. You know, the big plus sign that cut off the middle of the G and Longines. And that was very weird. Why would they do that? And the second issue they had the 12369 numerals, and the 6 on the bottom was literally cut in half by the
subdial, small seconds. Yeah.
And that also didn't make any sense to me.
You just can leave it away, right? I mean, just do a...
Yeah, why would you just not put, and by the way, I looked at my my other small seconds, the JLC, and JLC just didn't put a number there.
Right.
Which would make sense, but Longines...
Yeah, sometimes, I mean, Longines is a company that has so much history, so much of experience. You wouldn't think that sometimes they do these odd things, but some are more traditional that you have, you design your dial and then you put the subdial on top and whatever is there, then it's just cut off. I mean, look at Breguet, the new Type 20 or Type 22 or whatever it's called, where everything is, I mean, it is just insanity of how the oversized 3 o'clock subdial is cutting off everything, including like the date, and the date is cutting off stuff. It's a mess. I don't know.
So
old traditional companies.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. But anyway, so I got this one for a ridiculously good deal. That was the whole point.
Nice.
It's chronometer specs, still under warranty, so nice.
Nice.
That's it.
Yeah, cool.
I don't know what you were expecting.
I mean, I should have worn my new watch, right? Because I have also received a new watch.
Yes, you did.
It's the Timex
and you like
Waterbury.
It. You like it.
I actually really like it. I wore it 2 days straight, and it's pretty amazing.
It has the ghost position for the date, right?
It does.
It does, which I don't like.
I don't like that either, and it has no hacking seconds. It's a older Miyota movement in it, but it's okay. I mean, it's the ghost
for the
ghost
price. Would you have paid $290 for it?
No
way.
No.
But you paid 59? What, like 59?
Yeah, that's half the price of a strap. So yes,
I would have definitely, I think, paid that much for it.
And so the case is really well done. The dial is really nicely done with this structure on it that looks like a stone dial. We're coming to this later, or like a hammered dial, like this. What Audemars Piguet and others are doing. So that is pretty cool.
It has what impressed me was they even went so far as to have the crown have the Waterbury logo, which a lot of people bypass, right? They don't actually put anything. They have unmarked crowns.
On the Hodinkee website, I saw that I think the original release had it somewhat engraved or in black or something on it. Mine has it like a laser engraving. So very faint, but it's there. It's there.
Yeah. Interesting. So, but what's cool about this is the strap comes from a very famous tannery. SB Foot and Co., which is the in-house, and no one knows this. And I watched a video about this, and they're like, I don't know what this is. And it's the tannery for Red Wing boots.
Yeah, but it says that underneath. It has 2 lines of text. It says Red Foot, and then it says Red Wing, blah, 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 Minnesota.
So, which is funny because it's said all this. It's SB Foot Tannery, right? Red Wing, Minnesota. And Red Wing, Minnesota is, of course, the place where they made Red Wing boots. This was 2 separate things. And I think history, the lesson is that at some point, just like Rolex bought their dial manufacturers, right? Red Wing boots bought the SB Foot Tannery so that they would have control over their own leather manufacturer.
Yes.
But I'm a huge Red Wing boot fan. I have 3 or so pairs. And their leather quality is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, it's amazing of how much good leather can make a difference, right? But I was wondering,
but it's
because
like hard-wearing leather.
On my little...
So it's not like soft by any means.
Bitte? What?
It's not soft leather. It's the boots. They're extremely thick. They're like, I don't know, 3 millimeters thick leather. So it's super hard wearing, which means they last a very, very long time. So I don't know about your strap and how that is done.
It feels very good. I mean, I must say, this is a bit on a stiffer side, but it's really, really nice. But the thing is, on my hang tag, it says that the movement is made in Japan and the strap is made in China.
And that is an excellent question. And I saw this on one of the, what's it called as well, because it's stamped as SB Foot. Maybe leather.
It's the leather is being
and then the leather was
shipped
to China. Then they cut it there. Yeah. Because obviously SB Foot does not make anything besides leather, right? So they're not making
Maybe because it's, exactly. Maybe because it's the straps, because the entire watch is probably packaged and
made in China.
Put together in China. So obviously they just ship it there and then maybe just ship the raw leather there or the tanned leather and just cut it there and put it on.
That's what I'm thinking, because I don't think that they're making they're not cutting straps. They're not making straps. That would be someone else that's doing
maybe
this.
It's just really the leather that's being sent. Okay. So
it's the same thing with what's it called? The shell cordovan people, right? What's the name of the big shell cordovan manufacturer?
Forgot.
What's the big one? Horween out of Chicago. Horween. And they're not making their own straps, but you can find shell cordovan Horween straps that are, essentially bought and, you buy the whole cow and send it over.
Buy the cow. Let's start in the beginning. First, you need hay. Grass, lots of grass. Okay, let's talk about dials.
All right, let's go into dials. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to name a bunch of different dial stuff. And then you can go off on your little tangents as you tend to. First thing I want to mention is let's talk about... there's quite a lot. We're not going to go into marker types and, all this Arabic versus stick versus Roman. We did this in the previous episode. Today, the whole idea is dial
materials,
styles and materials. Exactly. So traditionally, I would say there's 3 common base materials, or a few more than 3. We'll get into the crazier ones later, but most of the original dials were made out of brass, right? That's kind of where everything started. Brass was kind of the one everyone used, and this is where there's too much to cover. My mind's already on guilt now. So if you had brass, the easiest way for you to make your markings on the dial was to scratch away at the paint on the brass dial, thus leaving a nice gold behind it. And that's where we got gilt dials from, right? It's essentially a relief of the brass plate that was then painted. This, of course, is no longer really done. So we've moved from brass to stainless steel. And I would say 99% of the watches out there today will have a stainless steel dial, right? Maybe plastic as well. Plastic could be one.
There's a lot of other materials there, that are used. I mean, yes, you're right. There's probably certain steel ones, but there's so many surface. I mean, dials are one of the most complicated things.
This is just the material. We haven't even gotten into the finishing aspect of things because that's a whole. We'll get into that in a moment.
Yeah, but
right now, I just want to talk about material
it because you can't put steel just general. I mean, on a watch dial in itself without having some kind of surface treatments on them, right? I mean, to make sure that it doesn't.
But by default, you can do this to any of the materials. So that's why we'll talk about the surface treatments. I decided we'll go for materials first. And then we can talk about treatments and things, right? Like we could say, we'll get into guilloche, for instance,
isn't it brass? And then the second one that came up was silver because it's easier to form and easier to cut.
Silver is also one of them. Yeah, technically you could have silver, gold, platinum. You can have whatever you want.
Silver is very soft. I mean, compared to other materials, right? So that's why it's so easy to make structures into it.
I was going to get into material. Precious metals. And then, of course, we have the other ones. We have enamel.
Mm-hmm.
We have ceramic.
Mm-hmm.
Enamel is not really... Enamel is paint, essentially. So that we can leave that. Ceramic is its own material.
I would say, but enamel is basically is not really paint. It's also a kind of a ceramic material.
But you're putting the ceramic material onto something.
On the dial. It's a powder, and then you burn
ceramic is not a metal. So this is what I was saying. This is where things get tricky. Enamel is technically a treatment, and if we're covering materials, we shouldn't mention enamel yet.
Yeah, it's like, well...
right?
Tough,
so now we should keep that for later. So ceramic is its own thing. You can make ceramic dials, right?
Mm-hmm. Let's not necessarily go for materials to otherwise. Let's discuss different dials and their result, and then we can discuss of how they're made. No?
Well, I think there's
because, for example, you have a brushed dial.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So brush will be like enameling. That will be a second, because right now if we start getting into...
brush dials can be made of, for example, stainless steel, silver, any kind of metal, right?
Yes.
So there you go. That's a brush dial. We have different
in a brush
horizontal
dial, what do you do?
Brushing,
horizontal, vertical,
ray,
sun ray,
circular,
a bunch of different...
whatever.
Okay, brushing. Sure. We also have
completely thrown our concept out of the window because because I was just thinking if we're going from a material perspective, then we say like, okay, there's steel dials, but then when you go on the whatever is the surface treatment, anything you can put on steel, it's a lot, right? There's a lot of different things you can put on steel dials, for example, because underneath a lot of them are just probably some kind of steel or brass or silver.
Yes. But that's where we're going to go into a few other things, right?
Oh, gold.
Mother of pearl.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's basically a little clam.
It is an clam. It's the shell of the clam, right? Hence, mother of pearl, which took me a while done. Yeah. It could be an oyster. It could be a clam. It could be whatever. Then we have our stone dials, which we can have a bunch of different versions, right? Essentially, it's a sliver of a stone that's cut. We can have wood dials. Once again, a sliver of wood that's cut. We can have meteorite dials, which is, you might have guessed, a sliver of a meteor that's cut.
Is it meteor actually a stone? Could you say it's also kind of a stone?
It is. It
has a lot of metal in it and all of different things.
A space stone.
Space stone.
We could this is one that I never really considered. We've seen sapphire crystals.
True.
Or crystals, sapphire dials as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's one that you don't often
Sometimes
see.
they're printed, sometimes they are see-through for a reason, right? Because you really want them to.
But essentially, I think that's about it. When it comes to dials, that is the materials that you can have. Now, what you choose to do with these materials is what you want to talk about, is the whole nother story.
Let's see the material groups. Yeah. So we have wood, we have stone, we have metals, and
ceramics.
crystals.
And ceramics.
And ceramic. But ceramic is also, basically a ceramic is made of ground stone and something else, right? Ceramic is also a compound material. It's not.
Oh, and plastic. And we forgot about plastic.
Plastic.
Right? So like swatches. Yes. I think those are...
and we forgot textiles. You know, some of the Grand Seikos and the Citizen washi dials and all of this stuff are actually paper. And linen dials, and I've seen one.
So linen dials are not actually linen. That's a common misconception.
Yeah, linen structure, but it's
they're structured like linen, but they're not actually.
But I have actually seen proper textile dials as well that are made out of a specific cloth. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. All right. Oh yes. So technically, yes, we could have cloth dial. There's a bunch of them. We probably left some things out here. We apologize.
I think we should only cover. I mean, this is a good basis of our dial discussion. Let's take this episode as the base and maybe discuss one. Let's say the
carbon
stone
dials.
Huh?
What about carbon dials?
The what dials?
Carbon.
Carbon, yes, of course, carbon.
That's a new one.
It's a man-made material, but it's also
composite, essentially, right?
Also very cool. Carbon as well, very, very strong, very light.
Apparently, there's another one as well. Called a marquetry dial. Are you familiar with this one?
No, never heard of that one.
Marquetry dials are super high-end, super rare, and essentially you take either stone or wood, and make essentially like a, what do you call those things where people put the little squares next to each other? And then a mosaic. Essentially, they make mosaics out of pieces of wood or pieces of stone, and they can build a bunch of different things. So there's a bunch of weird stuff. So essentially, this is putting things together.
Have you seen how these Japanese make these little boxes with these different patterns on them?
Yeah,
where they also put the different.
That is marquetry. Yeah, that is the art of marquetry.
Beautiful craftsmanship. It's so nice.
Yep. And then they put like lacquer over it, and then it looks seamless. Oh, you know, a very quick example of this would be the chopping blocks, right? The cutting blocks that you see with the light and dark colors of wood right next to each other. So essentially, these are glued together, and then they are sealed.
Yeah.
And that's what marquetry is. But marquetry takes it to a different level where they're actually making pictures and patterns out of this. One example of this would be... what was it? Rolex made one. It didn't, I don't know if it was actually a marquetry dial, but if you remember the Rolex dial with the weird, hey, let me try to see if I can find it.
Rolex.
I don't know if they actually did. If you put in marquetry, Marquetry, the first one that generally comes up is the Cartier. Cartier made a leopard face out of wood, with different pieces of wood, or panther, I guess it would be.
Yeah.
But also we see this in watch boxes, right? A lot of this marquetry patterns in watch boxes. Okay, I cannot find the Rolex one. But anyway.
Yeah.
It's a mosaic. That's all it is, right? There's a nice Piaget one as well.
Yeah. I think when you talk about all of these different materials, it's just amazing of what companies can come up with and what they need to consider, because these dials can't be too thick, right? So that's one of the biggest challenges, right? Because if you have a dial that is too thick, it makes the watch heavier. It makes it makes the watch in itself thicker, and thick watches are not necessarily the ones that you want, right? A lot of people don't like thick, bulky watches. Hello, Black Bay.
Yes.
From Jupiter, for example. So the movement is already thick, and then the hands and the sapphire crystal is thick, and all of the stuff, it needs to be quite thin. And that's one of the challenges that you also have with meteorite, right? You have to cut it very, very small because you want to save
you
the
also have a
because,
finite, exactly, you have a finite amount, but you want it thin enough, but then it has to be thick enough to actually withstand the wear and tear.
What I found is when I looked into the topic of meteorite dials, because I personally think meteorite is one of the coolest materials on Earth because it's not from Earth, actually, right? It's from a meteorite that hit Earth, and it's it traveled for millions of years. It's probably most likely older than Earth itself, most of the meteorites. So it's just something that is just absolutely insane of how many millions of years old this, or billions of years old, this meteorite is, and where it traveled and how far it traveled, and then eventually hit Earth. It's a complete...
To get to your Rolex,
and then you wear it on your
Pepsi.
wrist. Amazing. But what I was researching there is that the nice meteorite, for example, the one that Rolex uses, is a specific one, has a name. It's the, I don't know, called the Dudenhof meteorite or something like that. Rolex, I'm just Googling it. The name of the Rolex meteorite. Gideon. Yes.
Gideon.
Yes, exactly. So this is one single meteorite, right, that fell somewhere. And obviously, this is being cut, and Rolex purchased a big piece of it, right?
Of the whole meteorite.
Of the whole meteorite. And they are now taking it and shaving it off. And then it has a very, very nice, distinct metal lines in it and all of the stuff that.
So apparently, they use an acid to bring this up.
Yes, exactly. Let me finish, man. Okay, and then... You need to, in order to bring these materials out, of course, that's the expertise that Rolex has. You need to have different chemicals in order. One of them is being acid, in order to bring out these colors and of course the structure in it. And some meteorites have a nicer structure than others, or a more smaller structure that really gives itself to put it into watch dials because they're not too big. And then there's even one that Omega used. You remember this one, the Platinum Speedmaster, the 321?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That had these subdials made of lunar meteorite. Now, I don't know what lunar meteorite is, but it probably is a meteorite that fell on the moon instead of of the Earth. How they got it, I have no idea. But the thing is, that together with the onyx, polished onyx dial, just looks absolutely fantastic. Doesn't come across on pictures like that, but if you see this watch in reality, it's just like, wow, it's really the Speedmaster to get. But $60,000 is also a lot of money to pay for that.
So, by the way, a lunar meteorite is a meteorite that hit the moon. That was then brought back.
Okay, so somebody picked it up.
Somebody picked it up, and it's also known as a moon rock, right?
Yeah, moon rocks are moon. And then there's meteorite, right? You have moon surface, right? And I remember there were watches that had a tiny bit of moon dust in them. Remember that?
Yes, there was. And I was trying to think of, did anyone ever made a moon rock dial? But I don't think so, right?
Wasn't this the brand Romain Jérôme?
Yeah, they
had all of this DNA from Titanic, DNA from the moon, so little pieces of some other stuff in it, which has nothing to do with the dial. Just saying, it's just somewhere they have some of these things. What are other nice stone dials? Just rattle them down. Lapis lazuli, malachite. What else do we have?
Let's go back to the prismic that they're doing. That Baltic is doing. They're doing lapis lazuli, which is that vibrant, bright blue. They're doing a red agate. I don't know how to even pronounce that, which is super orangey. They're doing a green jade, and those are the three big ones that they're doing. One of the big ones, the one that everyone wants, is the onyx dials, right? Pure black. Rolex made these, and they were absolutely ridiculously dark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, onyx. Yeah. Onyx dials are super cool for the day date. I remember this one, right?
Mm-hmm.
But generally, onyx is a magical stone. Has been used for thousands of years, right? It's a.
Did you? So you said we said malachite. You mentioned already, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah, malachite.
Tiger eye. Tiger eye is the one that ends up looking like a like a, what's it called? What is it when it's goes from dark to light? What is the name
gradient?
for this? It's a gradient, exactly. That's what I was trying to go for.
That is nice.
Thank you for
malachite has these nice lines in it, and sometimes they're straight, sometimes they're slightly bent. There's really cool things. Then lapis lazuli, I said.
But malachite can be multiple colors.
Yes.
So that's not just one specific color.
No, but mostly you see green for malachite.
Yeah, green and blue are the two big ones. Pyrite is one of them.
Pyrite, yes, exactly. So then beware.
By the way, do you know what pyrite is?
I don't know. Remember what it was.
Pyrite is fool's gold.
Oh, fool's gold. We don't want fool's gold. Why is it called fool's gold? That's a nice story. Because people were fooled into thinking it is gold. I found gold, yeah, exactly. and then found out later it was just not real gold. It's
then there was
looks like
sodalite.
Sorry, there's one?
Sodalite.
Sodalite, okay.
No idea what that is.
Yeah,
howlite.
So when we come
Howlite.
When we talk about these things, there's also a watch brand from which I had a watch once upon a time, and I sold it because it wasn't fitting on my wrist so well, but I liked it very much in general, which was Argonaut watches. You know Black Badger? Black Badger is a guy who's teamed up with Anders Brandt from Denmark, and he's James Thompson. And I met him on the Dubai Watch Week. He's from Sweden. He's living in Sweden, but he's actually Canadian. Complicated story, but he is making these amazing dials, and he works with brands like Tag Heuer and Audemars Piguet and others together to make specific luminous materials. He is a master of these kind of materials, and he figured out ways of making composite stone dials. So one of the first watches
yes.
found,
I know
a small sculpture somewhere, so a public sculpture in Denmark or Sweden, and he liked the stone, so he broke off a piece of it, ground it, and made some other things with it, and then created dials on it. It's pretty cool.
Somebody mentioned this. I don't know how real it is and how true it is, but they're saying that the Rolex dials are actually not what they say they are. So if you buy a stone dial Rolex, they're like, it's not actually a stone. It's not as simple as that. So a lot of these are colored, painted, things like that. But I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet with stones.
No. I mean, me neither. There's turquoise stone.
Okay, hold
on.
Did you ever see
turquoise stone?
Howlite. Oh yeah, turquoise is beautiful. So howlite was the marble one. So apparently, you know the date that looked like it had a marble dial?
We actually haven't mentioned marble at all. Right?
Exactly. So that's another one, which is technically a stone as well. There was ferrite. There was apparently one called jasper, which I've never heard of.
Oh yeah, that's a precious stone.
But here is one that really, really took me by surprise. The last one. And I'm gonna take a picture of this and I'm gonna download this as so that you guys can see it in the Instagram. Fossil dials. Rolex used fossil dials, which is absolutely just the most ridiculous thing. Here, Ralph, I'm sending it to you on iMessage just so you can see it as well.
Okay.
While we're here, because this is beyond ridiculous. It is exactly what you think. It's hundreds of these little fossilized whatever in the stone.
Oi. And that looks like it's I don't know, swarming bacteria or something.
Yeah, something like this, exactly. Not exactly the.
It looks cool.
But of course, this was. They're extremely fragile, extremely brittle. They can break super easily. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I think when you come, there's one of the things is just having a nice piece of stone, nicely treated, nicely polished, in the right design that fits the dial of the watch, and then put it in. And then you have, of course, the ones that are, like you said, mosaics and others, where for example, Vacheron Constantin has done a lot with these métier des arts, super complicated dials that are made to show certain things, right? They're not just where the material is the star, it's the design or whatever you want to, the picture that you wanted to create, but you used certain technologies to create it. Yeah, but I really like sometimes when just the material is the star of the show, right? When you just have that. And that's pretty cool. I think that's very nice.
I just found the list. This is an old, I don't know, from when the 70s list of Rolex dial chart of what you could have for an additional cost. And I think the things that we went through is just, we're not even close to having. There's slate. There is
slate. Yes, exactly.
I'm just blindly showing some stuff here. They had, of course, rose, which was also a type of stone. Coral, mother of pearl, of course, lapis lazuli, opal. We never mentioned opal. Yeah. What else was interesting? Something popped out, and now I lost it immediately.
What we have to say there, at the time, we have to also mention this, that Rolex has not had their own dial manufacturing until I think the year 2000, when they bought the dial manufacturer.
This
Before that, they
was not
always
from all them,
used third-party suppliers for all of their dials, right? So there's a Singer, Bayerle, I don't know, whatever other, the ones that I forget now, Fiedler, I think. I know that was the hands. What is it? They have lots of different manufacturers who actually made these dials, the Stellar dials, the enamel Stellar dials at the time, and all of this stuff. And they're all coming from third-party suppliers. Rolex did not make a single dial themselves until 2000.
And
crazy.
Well, even then, technically, they just bought the manufacturer.
Yes, or bought their know-how and just put it into their own factories and moved everything there, or they just used the existing factories. But generally, they're trying to move everything then together, right? So yeah, it's crazy.
And just for the woods, they have birch, they have African mahogany. They have walnut. It's ridiculous. Oh, we didn't even mention aventurine, by the way.
And this is one of the things that I find actually when people are saying like, oh, in-house, that allows you, if you work with multiple extremely sophisticated and specialized suppliers, to make really, really cool things, because you're not fixated on just making it in-house. And if I can't make it myself, I don't do it. Right?
Exactly.
Especially, even though when you think what the dial is one of the most important aspects of your watch and you outsource it, right, to a certain extent, it's weird. But on the other hand, it's super, super cool, because that's when you have the ability to make so many different versions of it. Without their suppliers, Rolex wouldn't have all of these different things that you just mentioned.
Exactly. And so once again, this is one of the things that, I often teach in my my entrepreneurship course is don't do something. Everyone has their core competencies. There's no point in doing something that's going to cost you a lot of money to figure out how to do. And then you're going to be worse than the person you're comparing yourself to, right? And this is one of the issues we talked about in the in-house push, is a lot of people said, oh, we're going to be in-house. And they started making movements that were worse than the ETAs that they were using before.
Yes.
So, okay, great. You say it's in-house, but did you get any measurable benefit out of it? No.
Yeah, and thinking about it, that when Vacheron Constantin makes watches for 250 years, 200 of these years, they didn't make movements.
Yeah.
For 50.
But now all of a sudden,
no, except one is all in-house. But the point there is that you can be a world-renowned watchmaker without making your own watch movements necessarily, because you are so good at just putting things together or asking other companies to make specific watch movements that they know how to do according to your specifications. So there's a lot of things that you can do. But you're right with the core competencies, and I think Steve Jobs said this. It's not enough to just make things different. You need to make them better, right? So very often it's just not, just being different, but not improving it is not necessarily always a good thing.
Exactly. Okay. All right. We got many more to come.
Yeah. So
now we've gone through, let's say, the natural materials.
Okay.
Let's go into non-natural materials, I guess. How about we start talking about what
are we
you
still
do?
Talking about stone? Because we will. I think we will.
We're not. We're done with stone.
Because
we'll go on to what you wanted to talk about.
Already like 45 minutes in the episode. If you start other things now, then.
No, we'll go into what we can do with our regular dials. So finishing methods, so to speak. So one of the simplest and oldest ones was the crosshair pattern.
You mean just printing now?
Printing. Not just printing. No. Printing plus material modifications like guilloche and things like this we could talk about.
Yeah. I mean, guilloche is also, again, there's a lot of things that happens after you guilloche something, right? You have to just do certain surface treatments after you have cut it out. You have some kind of paint or surface protection, I think, in most of these ones. You can also paint, or you can put nanotubes on it, right? Super small nanotubes, and that's then called Vanta Black. For example,
Vanta Black is technically
really
what?
Cool. It's actually not a paint. It's not a paint. It's actually small nanotubes. And that's why it's so difficult. And when I spoke to the Moser guys, to Edward Milan, he said we have one person who actually can service Vanta Black movements, because you have to be so careful. If anything hits the nanotubes, they break. It's not good. So and of course, any speck of dust that you have on the dial will show like it's lit up by spotlights, right? Because it's so prominent.
The same with onyx.
Yes, correct. Onyx
one of the watchmakers, I watched the video yesterday on Chrono 24, and they said that it took them 3 hours to get a dial into a watch just so it wouldn't have any dust on it.
Yeah, you really need to have a professional clean room basically for it, right? Where you go in and you have no skin showing because skin flakes and dust and other stuff. It's terrible, yeah.
It is. Okay, so then we have so as we said, we have our guilloche dials. Well, we use
I think guilloche is nearly an entire episode, because the explaining how guilloche is made is such a wonderful thing, and I think we should talk about it and how many companies are still being able to make proper guilloche. I think there's only a handful of them who can.
Even Rolex is not doing it.
No, what actually Rolex is doing with their guilloche dial that they use in the 1908 is they use machines for it. So it's not handmade, which is obviously automated with Rolex because they like to automate things. But there is the traditional craftsmanship for guilloche, and that's I think we should talk in a separate episode of that.
We'll do an episode on guilloche.
Yeah,
put it on the list.
Yes.
All right. So what about we started talking about enamel?
Yes.
So you started going into enamel about it's essentially a steel dial or whatever, copper, silver, whatever you have. And then you are going to essentially put this powder. It's not paint. It's like powder that you then bake, and it melts, and it turns into this glossy looking, shiny thing, right?
Correct.
So that's one way of doing it. So the end goal is the same, right? There's multiple ways to get to it.
The thing is, you have to, if you want to create enamel, the thing is the powder, if you just do it in one color, it's easy. because you put this one color on, but the powder changes colors while it's being burned in the oven, right? And you have to, depending on what kind of enamel dial you do, you have to fire it in the oven at, I don't know, 800, 900,
1200
degrees.
Yeah,
it's crazy hot for 10 to 15 times. Every time you take out that little dial out of the oven, you open the oven, you take the dial out. This dial will hit from 1500 degrees in the oven, your temperature in your room, like 25 degrees, 23 degrees, right? This hit, or this temperature change, can be so drastic that these dials will crack or break.
Yeah.
In any case, what they do, because the powder actually contracts while being liquidified and then heated up, they actually bend the metal, the dial surface, the steel surface of the dial, so that you actually put the same amount of enamel on the bottom side to counteract this, so that it pulls on both sides from the dial.
Wow.
Yeah. So otherwise you have this funny shaped thing which is not flat, and then if you want to flat it, the chances that it cracks is again very big, right? So that's why you have to.
But I think like the number was like 10% of them work, right? I think 10 out of 100, roughly 1 out of 10.
Some people I asked, because this is floating around as a common wisdom, and like 1 of 10 actually makes it. But then when we went to Van Cleef & Arpels in the Dubai Watch Week, and we asked about their enamel dials, of what is their success rate of these dials, and I said, is it true that only 10% make it? And they said, no, we would be bankrupt if only 10% will make it.
Yeah.
Because ours.
But I think it depends on who you are and what level you're doing this at as well.
And I read somewhere that these ladies who take, for example, these dials out at Anordain, for example, we are very famous for their enamel dials. They know exactly how to take them out of the kiln, the firing oven, because. And they can't describe it exactly. They're saying, we know we have it, we feel it, of how quickly and how.
It's like how my grandmother cooks.
Yeah, exactly.
How much salt do you put? Enough.
Adequate.
Thanks for the recipe. No, but the thing is also to make these colors of enamel, it's ridiculous because you're combining different materials essentially, right? Yeah. So iron will be gray, iodine will be red, chromium will be green, and then you have to mix this stuff together to make these different colors, which also
and the people who design this is the funniest thing, because you're putting all of these colors into a dial, or the powder onto a dial which has a completely different color before it's burned. And then the color during the burning process, it comes out. So you have to have a lot of, how do you say that? You have to project how it will look like when it's actually done. It's crazy.
So now, enamel is so difficult that people started making kind of alternative versions of enamel, right? To make it somewhat easier for them to make. One example is, of course, simply a lacquer paint. Yes. You get 90% of the effect of the enamel. We see this a lot. And of course, there's no real issues with making it. It's much simpler to do. We could also have just what Omega did and just have entirely ceramic dials. And that also will give you a similar effect to a lacquered dial or a enamel dial. So that also is a interesting kind of take on that.
Yeah. So I think the when you think about this lacquering as well, I mean, surface treatments, lacquering. Grand Seiko has said this in one of their lectures at the Horological Society of New York. Great lectures, by the way. You have a look on the YouTube channel. That the champagne dial of the Grand Seikos, which is the least desirable for whatever reason, or least not desirable, the least demanded.
Yeah.
But they're saying it's one of the most complicated to create. More than 50 steps are needed to create
Rolex said this as well with the silver dial.
Yeah.
With just a basic silver dial. They said it was one of the most complicated ones to do.
Crazy, right? And sometimes
every imperfection shows up.
Yeah, and we don't really appreciate it because it's boring. It's a champagne dial. Oh. But it takes them so much time and effort to actually create them.
And what about porcelain dials? Saying with the whole enamel thing, porcelain is already, kind of similar. It's even more difficult.
Yes.
And things like the Credor Ichi line of watches have those, and those are ridiculously expensive, right?
You can get them into Prospex range already, right? At Seiko as well.
No. Prospex is you're thinking about the, what's the other one? Prospex is the diving watches. So they don't make any enamel dials in that one.
Presage,
Presage, yes. Presage will also have that.
Yeah, they had a few of these where I thought, wow, these just white porcelain dials from the Japanese manufacturer Arita porcelain. And that is really lovely because it also has a depth to it, right? Enamel, specific lacquers, and of course, porcelain has this feeling of it's not flat. There's depth to the color, right? I don't know how to explain this properly, but it is some richer, deeper, more solid material that looks like not just a flat paint. It's just, I don't know. It's a porcelain. What can I say?
It's strange.
It just looks very different.
Now, let's move on from our shiny dials to, because now we're putting them. We had their natural dials. Now we had shiny dials. With guilloche, we didn't mention that there's a few other kind of, we'll call them textured dials, right?
Mm.
We have guilloche, which can be a bunch of different things. We'll talk about that another time. But we have teak dials, which the Aquaterra famously used with vertical, essentially, lines, right?
You have teak design, dials. You have real teak wood.
This is the fake. They're not real teak wood, right? They're just putting these lines vertically to make it look like, or at least Omega said, they're trying to replicate the look of the teak deck on a boat.
Yeah.
So that we had tapestry dials, or tapisserie, sorry. Tapestry? What's a tapestry dial? That's also something.
Tapestry is as a carpet, no?
No. The tapestry dial was Rolex. Tapisserie dial is what AP uses.
Tapestry is a
tapestry dial.
Is a textile.
Is
fabric.
Rolex's teak. They had the tapestry dial was the vertical lines that they used to put on date chests.
So like a hand-woven textile, basically.
It has nothing to do with it actually being hand-woven. It was just reminiscent of it, much like how Rolex also had linen dials, which was just metal reminiscent and shaped to look like a linen sheet, essentially. Right? What else? What else do we have?
Yeah, I think for now we have nearly an hour full.
Skeleton dials. What about skeleton dials?
What that?
Skeleton.
Well, then actually the material of the dial is that it's not there.
It's removed. Exactly.
It's basically the movement is the dial. Yeah. Which
sector
also is
dials,
pretty cool. I like
dials.
Do you remember all of these dials with a cutout? I think Seiko had a lot of them. Zenith,
they were
Venice
so
used
open
heart. Yeah, I know it became so awkward. But as a new watch collector, this is what a lot of people are immediately drawn to because they say, "Oh, I can see what the watch is doing. This is amazing." And then you end up with a Rolex that has nothing. You can see nothing.
Okay. Here's one more dial that we didn't mention.
Okay.
Pavé.
What is that?
When it's iced out.
Yeah. Okay, then of course you have basically a diamonds as a dial.
Yep. And that's an interesting one.
But not a single diamond, but lots of
a bunch of diamonds. Yeah, because I don't think they can make a single diamond into a watch.
That would be a very big
wasteful.
diamond, which would be very expensive.
Yes. What about also, we talked about lots of gloss, but we never talked about matte, which also was a huge and is a huge thing, right? Matte dials.
Yeah, but for example, some of the stone dials are matte, right? Some of the component stones.
This is a simple one, right?
Yeah. So then different. Basically the epitome of matte dials is the Vanta Black, right? It's so matte that you can't even see it.
Exactly. But
shiny.
Matte, of course, was done for the purpose of having high legibility, right?
Yes.
Contrast.
Especially if you have no anti-reflective coating on your glass, on the crystal, right? Then you should ideally have something that is not highly reflective on the dial, because otherwise you have only reflections when you look at your watch. The reason why Rolex, remind me, I mean, I'm sure you know, but the reason that Rolex is now using anti-reflective coating in most of their watches, but hasn't used this before, had something to do with diving. I remember. They said because underwater, anti-reflective coating can be detrimental, but the one that if you don't have anti-reflective coating underwater, it's better to see the dial. I think in dive watches, something like that. And that's why they didn't use anti-reflective coating, and now they do. I wondered, because I have IWC and Breitling watches in history. They have always used lots of anti-reflective coating on the front and on the back. Usually most of the companies do only in the back from the inside of the crystal, and not on the top of the crystal, because on the top of the crystal it can easier scratch, right? So
the scratching I remember being an issue, but I don't know about the diving thing.
IWC and Breitling still puts also anti-reflective coating on most of the watches, also on the top layer. They have created a more scratch resistant anti-reflective coatings, but it is really cool. And my old Super Ocean, I can see that there are tiny scratches when I look with a loupe on the anti-reflective coating, but it still looks like, in most times when I look at the dial, it looks like there is no dial. It just,
so
sorry,
I have
not dial,
no crystal,
no glass, no crystal.
I have one of each. So I have my sub with no anti-reflective coating, and then I have my Explorer does have it. And I just, when I go to take a picture of, a wrist shot, it's night and day. In one case, you see the dial. In the other case, all you see is reflections.
Right.
So kind of interesting. But people are also saying, by the way, that where was it?
But this is also what I heard about some people saying Rolex does that because it just sparkles more.
Somebody said because of the Cyclops, they could not have fitted a Cyclops to the anti-reflective coating.
But the funny thing is that the anti-reflective coating under the Cyclops is always there.
Exactly.
Which is weird.
But I don't know if this is true. I'm on Reddit here.
Probably is the Cyclops actually part of this crystal, or is this glued on?
No, it's two separate pieces glued on.
So if it's glued on, then you can always, you can
remove it. A lot of people did.
Yeah.
So, but then this always, I don't understand the idea of, now we're off topic again, but why wouldn't they just coat the underside of the glass? If they're prone to scratching, you coat the underside with the AR and then you're done.
It's yes, exactly. And then you can have multiple coatings, right? Some watch brands coat it up to 4 times. Right? So that the more anti-reflective coating you have, the less reflections you will see. And of course, ideally, you have coatings on the bottom and the top. But yes, and this is what Rolex does now. Anti-reflective coating only on the inside. And now it's okay.
Yeah, but I'm saying with Omega, who does it on top, is what I'm saying is, why wouldn't they just only do the bottom?
They do, but it's better if you still have a reflective surface, right? So it's not as
And
good.
What about polarizing? Polarizing the glass. Just like in glasses, when you polarize the lens, a lot of the reflections goes away.
True, but if you polarize it, wouldn't you then have problems when you look at different angles?
Yeah. But when you look at it head on,
sometimes when you look at when I wear my polarized glasses, depending on which screen I look at, my screen is entirely black.
Yeah,
you had this in the old in-car
in the old
displays.
Volkswagens.
You put your sunglasses on and suddenly you had no displays anymore.
Volkswagen used to polarize all of their gauges and screens, and I would wear my polarized glasses and you couldn't see anything.
Maybe there's the reason. If you wear sunglasses, you can't look at your watch anymore.
I guess. That's true. It could be. That's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So I think we've gone lots of...
Yeah, but that was a fun episode. I think we have talked a lot about stones and other materials, and now we can go into another episode and talk about guilloche and all of the lacquers of the world and the controversy at Vacheron Constantin changing their dial manufacturing process.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah, on the overseas blue dial.
Whatever will we do?
Scandalous. All right.
Anyway, all right. On that bombshell.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
See you next week.